is great. I mean, I think you're gonna be my 30th video testimonial.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
That's great.
it's awesome. Like, but it's great. I love what I do, and this is just a nice little reward. So super happy you're here, and really excited, for you to take the time to share your experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let me make it so we're side by side here.
I will tell you that when I found you, I was actually seeing a counselor at the time. And I gave up the counselor because I wasn't getting anywhere. I'd been to a counselor many times throughout my
Mhm.
lifetime through marriage counseling, which ended up in divorce anyway.
Right.
Um, so I ended up giving up the counselor and just working on what you were teaching me. And I got farther with that than I ever did with any counselor, for sure.
That's a great start. That's a great start, Chris. So perfect, perfect. Yeah, and I tell people sometimes when they start, I can't tell people not to go to a counselor or therapist. That's not, I have to be very clear about what I do, and I'm not a licensed quote therapist or counselor, and I have to be very clear that I can't say to do or not do that. But if they bring it up themselves, I'll say, listen, you can always go back. But if you're feeling like this is going in a certain direction, and I know what the direction is, and I know where they want to go, but if they feel like that, there's no harm in putting a pause in that and just see where you're at. But that's a great start, Chris. Yeah, wonderful. So yeah, so you'd been trying that on and off for many years, including couples counseling with the when you were going through your divorce, and after all that time, it just didn't bear fruit, right?
No, no, it didn't. It was a lot of going over what had happened in my youth with my parents, whatever. And so you end up reliving it all, and it doesn't get you anywhere. It just leaves you in that situation, and it leaves you um, feeling very
By the way,
defeated.
I can only see your glasses. You have your
Oh,
glasses
I'm sorry.
off. So
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
just that's
Sorry,
okay. I want the
it's my
video to be
iPad.
good. Who's
It's
this half glasses lady? I only see half.
perfect. It's perfect. Just want to only see the lower half of my face anyway. Um, no, it like I said, it leaves you with it brings you back to situations that you don't necessarily want to be in when you're dealing with a counselor.
Mm,
Um, and there was a few things, and I'll say light bulb moments that went off in my life over the last summer that I wanted to take control of my life. I was so sick and tired of everyone else running my life, and this gave me that tool to take control and to be happy without having to make everyone else happy. The only person that needs to be happy is me.
yeah.
And and it goes with and we all have this, and I think this is my generation as well. We feel like we have to make our parents happy,
Hmm.
um, and our parents take advantage of that, um, and that sounds really callous, but they have this entitlement that we owe them
Hmm.
respect, and that we're supposed to suffer because we're supposed to show them respect. And that's one of the things that I came out of this past few months with, is that ultimately I'm the one that needs to be happy.
Hmm. Yep.
And if no one else is going to support me, that's their issue, not mine. And I'm feeling I've made a lot of changes in the past few months,
Hmm.
and some of them are cutting people out of my life.
Hmm.
um, and it goes to that I can deal with you with respect. I need your approval
Yep.
to fulfill my destiny.
No.
um, I love you, but I don't need to approve of everything that you say and you do, and I don't owe you respect because you are my elder or you are someone who thinks that you have power over me.
Hmm.
And that's been a huge awakening in my life.
Hmm.
Um, and it's something, it's funny because I've been trying to teach my son the same thing.
Yeah.
uh, and trying to guide him into your program, um, because he has issues himself, and I get them. They're dealing with his father, and I get it.
Yeah.
I get how his father thinks that everything is supposed to go his way, and I dealt with that for 28 years, and I shielded my kids from that for many years. But when I stepped out of the picture and said I'd had enough, what I didn't realize that I was doing was I was giving them the full brunt of what I had been protecting them from for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, both my kids have suffered from that, where I've now moved, I've leaped, made leaps and bounds forward in my progress. And
Mm-hmm.
in the last couple of months, I've watched them fall back because they're now under that influence, and it saddens me. So that's my goal, is to get them into your program.
Okay, awesome. And I'll just share a couple things for you here. The easiest way for you to get them to do anything for themselves is not to try and convince them. Just be a shining example of what's possible.
Yeah.
If you waste, I mean, if you spend a lot of time and energy trying to convince them, tell them, teach them, and they're not ready to hear it, you accomplish nothing. And then two, all you're doing, Chris, is taking away from that energy that could be reallocated towards wonderful things. Never forget here, look, at the end of the day, the situation you went through was maybe not the most pleasant and was hard, but it served you. And you have to recognize your role. Your role is not to be anyone's savior. That's God's job, not your job. So let God do his job. You do yours. The only people I even have these conversations with are you guys. So like I'm not talking. I mean, dude, I got people in my life that are just sometimes they're absolutely clueless. But that's not the best way I can influence people is just be a shining example that, hey, we can be in charge, not perfect, but consistent and controlled. But that's you do yourself a big favor by not saying anything anymore to him. Like just be that let them come to you one day and say, wow, Mama, how did you do it? You just seem like so great these days. Then they'll be ready for that. But until then, you mean well, but you're not helping them, and you're not going to help yourself, because you're taking away from that limited. Like, look, your energy level in a very practical way is probably double or triple what it was when you first started, because of the products you're using. But regardless, you still have a finite amount of energy that's going to be available to you on any given day. So if you allocate that in the wrong directions, you're only hurting yourself. That's just not the way to go. But it's very important. I tell myself this every day. Like, I say this with love, of course, but I'm not responsible for other people's emotional states. And if they want to feel like shit, fuck them. Then feel like shit. Like, that's, when I fight somebody, and I say, I don't mean this in a bad way, or like with love and respect, but if my girlfriend and I are if she's in a, it happens sometimes, happens to all of us. If she's in a little bit of a funk and she wants to be mad and fiery, I say, hey, you go be mad and angry by yourself in your room, and I'm going to enjoy my own existence in this room. And when you're ready to reconnect with me, I'm ready, and we'll hug and everything's good. But it's not your job to save people or be in control of their emotional states. They ultimately can do the same thing that you can do. And at the end of the day, all the frustration he's going through, for example, it will serve him, because you had to go through what you went through to do what you did. You wouldn't have done it unless things got painful enough. So maybe he needs to fall just a little further before he's finally ready. And why? Yeah. So let him fall. Let him fall. Your son's going to be okay. And maybe that painful lesson will ultimately propel him and finally get him to be ready, because you would not have done what you did unless you fell down as far as you need to go. So ironically, by you just kind of keeping him up just a little bit, might actually keep him from doing what he needs to do. Just let him do his thing. Let him do his thing. When he's ready to have a conversation, then he'll let you know. But until then, just remember, this program is about keeping your life very simple. At the end of the day, you got one job. Do your one job, and let everyone else do their job.
And that's it's so interesting, because as his mother, it's funny because I've never been a helicopter parent ever. I let them make their mistakes. If they needed to come to me, great. If they didn't, you know what? You do you. And then when things fall apart, or if they don't, then we'll have a conversation about it later.
Mm-hmm.
But I was always the parent that was there. Their dad was never there. He was always traveling. He was gone. And what's really interesting is their dad now has become the helicopter parent. My kids are into their 30s now, late 20s, early 30s. And now their dad's become this helicopter parent who's got to constantly keep track of everything that they're doing. Mm-hmm. And I'm not doing that. I'm staying back. I'm making suggestions. Okay, you might want to do this. You could do this. You could do that. But I will not make demands on their time. I will not make demands on anything. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it is because I'm trying to keep myself happy. Yeah. So, for instance, my son's 30th birthday was a few weeks ago, and I thought that I was finally going to be able to have a birthday with him, just me, without his dad being there. Nope, I find out 2 days before that his dad is going to be there with his new girlfriend and blah, blah, blah. So I chose not to be there.
Okay.
And my son was really upset with me. He said, well, I can't uninvite people. And I said, yeah, actually you can. Mm-hmm. I said, but since you won't, then I will not be there.
Good.
And he was shocked. He was absolutely shocked because this was his 30th birthday and he fully expected me to be there. I'm like, no, you know that's not going to make me happy. So no, not going to be there.
Good for you.
And I held my ground. I held my ground. For probably the first time in my life, I held my ground. And I shocked a few people. I really did. And it was funny because my best friend knew that it was his birthday. And so she organized a barbecue for me and a bunch of our friends. And it was like, okay, we'll celebrate his birthday without celebrating his birthday. Good. And it was, you know what, I've got really great people in my life that support what I'm doing, that see changes in me, positive changes. And I've had people comment on how far I've come just since the end of June and how far I'm, you know, they see the changes and how different I am. And for me, that's amazing.
Wonderful. You know, the good news for you is that cycle will never stop. Were you on I did a graduate call yesterday. Were you on it by any chance? I forget.
No, I was supposed to be, and I contacted you because my phone number had changed. Okay. And then I ended up having to run to my shop and do something, so I ended up completely missing it.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, I'll tell you the synopsis of it, and this is very important for you to hear. You know, never forget, you did the hardest part with me. For like 6 weeks, we literally, you know, resurrected ourselves from the ashes like the fucking great phoenix. You did the hardest part. And that's the same for everybody. Everybody, the way, it's almost classic. People start in a pretty low place relative to where they were. First week or so, usually for most people, first week or so is pretty decent. They're starting to move as long as they have a good attitude. And then usually they're doing really well. And then week 2, kind of a crash. Oh my God, what's happening? I'm not having dropped to my knees, tears of joy, gratitude. Like it's getting, and I have to remind them, you lived a certain way for fucking 50 years. You think that's going to be completely gone in half? It's ridiculous. And they're like, oh yeah, you're right. And I remind them, dude, this is a real workout. This is no different than if I had never worked out my physical muscles and I start training a certain way. I'm not going to become the next Andre Agassi or the next Arnold Schwartz. I mean, I'm going to progress, sure, but it's going to be higher highs and higher lows. And then what always happens is then they get past it and like, wow, Lance, you're right. I just had to do exactly what you told me to do, which is the practice, you know, the other tools, and follow it, even if it's fucking hard, do it all day long. And then they go at these next levels. And usually there's maybe one more blip, maybe somewhere around, and it's not a blip, it's just a challenge, like maybe towards the end of week 4. And it's, oh my God, it's getting tough again. And then if they push past it, they reach another high. And so they're already seeing the life cycle. It's going to, from now on, be higher highs and higher lows. It never ends. And it's like almost they forget the challenges. I was never here to stop challenges, Carissa. Challenges are going to happen. People are going to piss you off. You're going to have certain conversations, strong conversations sometimes with your son or whoever, right? your business partner. That's not going to end. And then what happens is, so I'm seeing the people that graduated. I'm like, and I ask, it's almost split. Some people are still doing the practice rigorously, like a military operation, and those people for like months or even years are still continuing to same thing. Some challenges, but higher highs and higher lows. Then some
Yeah.
people, something happened and they just fucking fell off the bandwagon almost completely. And they're like, well, I'm having a really tough time. And I'm like, well, that's because you're not doing the work anymore. That'd be me like in incredible physical shape, and all of a sudden I stop working out. I look like an Adonis, and then I eat potato chips and hang out on the couch all day. What the fuck do I want for So those people are having challenges. That's because they're not doing the work. And then I
Right.
had a few people in the middle that were doing the practice sometimes. And this is a classic one too. I've had many people after the program do have a second shot with their ex. They're showing at a completely different level, and all of a sudden it works. That's not coincidence. And by the way, on that note, that connects to something you were kind of referring to earlier. A lot of people, because we're taught this stuff. Oh, Chris, it's your limiting beliefs. It's limiting beliefs. You need to work on your limiting beliefs, or Chris, you need to work on your mindset. Like that's not addressing the core. The core is how you feel. When you feel confident, you don't have to work on a quote mindset. It's a feeling people want. When you feel confident, you don't do stupid shit. When you feel confident, you don't sabotage your life, your progress, your relationships. It's a feeling. So a mindset is worthless if you can't actually duplicate that feeling. That's what you're ultimately looking for. So when we
Right.
talk about limiting beliefs or limited mindsets, you just want to condition yourself to feel a certain way. When you feel a certain way, that's when your whole life changes. And that's what you have now in a very practical way. Never forget, at the end of the day, it's a conditioning process. I didn't offer you a mindset process. I didn't offer you a limiting to belief process. I said it's a conditioning process. You'll be able to resume your most powerful, loving, joyful, confident self from a feeling perspective. So on that note, what my main point was in the graduate call, I had a couple people that fell off the bandwagon because they had another challenge. Maybe it was something completely different. Maybe it was like, a business challenge or whatever it was. And that challenge kind of put them like deer in the headlights. And they stopped like, oh my God, I'm fucked. And it's almost like, I wish I was there to say like, this is not any different. You could lost a loved one. You could have a business challenge. This will never change. All you got to do is execute. And if you did exactly what I told you to do, this would not be an issue. And again, there are a lot of people in the program that did do everything, and they had some. I have one girl in the program that had a way worse issue after she graduated. I mean, really bad than she had during the program. But she did what I asked her to do, and it was pretty tough for a couple of days. But now she's a completely different level, and she's like is amazing herself. So never forget, Carissa, you basically did on a micro scale what you'll have to do your whole life. When you have those challenges, you put a smile on your face and like, let's do it. It is what it is. And if you can execute the discipline, last the whole day, I promise you by the end of the day, you're going to say, wow, that wasn't a fun day, but I'm actually kind of doing pretty good. And that was so worth it. And that's it. You never actually need me again. All you got to do is execute the discipline. But remember, at the end of the day, it's conditioning. It's simple. It's conditioning. It's not a mindset. It's not a limiting belief. It's simply training your brain like you train a muscle and continuing to do so. And never forgetting in the future, when you have challenges, which are inevitable, there's nothing different. It's no different than what you and I worked on over the 6 weeks. I mean, it's fun when every so often, because I speak to people after they graduate, every so often I'll have someone where they're having a really tough time and they're like, oh my God, Lance, I'm having a tough time. And again, because they're not doing the practice. And I'll say to them, I'll say, well, what do you think I'm going to tell you? What do you think I'm going to tell you? And they're like, I know you're going to tell me. Like, then fucking do it. And then they do it, and then they're back in it again. But this never ends. Never forget that what you did with me is on the micro scale. Like I told you from the very beginning, my intention was always to be your one and done. So when you have this challenge in the future, nothing's changed. It is going to be hard. You're just going to have to execute. And if you do it, then you're going to get a big reward.